thank you guys so much for having me here today. My name is Shruti, and a little bit more about me. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, so I'm not a native Californian. I went to the University of North Carolina, where I studied political science and minored in entrepreneurship. And my first job out of college, I was actually a public school teacher. So tech and startups and this whole world was totally foreign to me up until about 8 or 9 years ago. But today I want to talk to you about a really big idea that I have. So I believe that we need a new system of capital to fund startups that supports women, people of color, and entrepreneurs that are building businesses outside of major metro areas who want to focus on building profitable, sustainable companies. But before I get into the mechanics of why and how I think this could work, I want to tell you a little story. So in 2013, I mentioned that I was a public school teacher. I was living in Baltimore, and I was going to make a move across the country. I decided that I was going to work for a fund, an early stage education technology fund in San Francisco, and I had a bunch of furniture in my townhouse in Baltimore that I knew really wasn't going to make it across the country. It was expensive to move, it was cheap furniture, and so I had to figure out what I was going to do with it. And as many of you have probably experienced if you've ever moved or downsized or decided you didn't like your sofa anymore, the problem of how do I get rid of this stuff is a problem that everyone has. And I kind of assessed my options. I think I tried to donate some stuff. I think some stuff ended up on the curb. And ultimately, I sold a lot of stuff on Craigslist, which is never really fun because you have all these random people coming through your house, and it takes a long time, and people haggle with you. And the process was pretty cumbersome. And then when I got to San Francisco, I basically did the same thing in reverse. I went on Craigslist myself. I was the random person going to someone's house. And, or I went to IKEA, or I went to thrift stores. And I started to think that this process was incredibly inefficient. And at the same time, I had 3 friends who'd also moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. And we started talking about this idea. We wondered why no one had really solved this problem. There were online listing websites like Craigslist, but no one had really thought about like what is the issue here, and how do you actually solve this problem in a meaningful way? So none of us were terribly in love with our jobs. We were also very young. I was 24. And I decided that, along with my friends, that we were going to take a stab at solving this problem. So we held a bunch of focus groups, talked to a lot of our friends and family, and we tried to figure out what solving this problem might look like. And that's how the idea for MoveLoot was actually born. So MoveLoot is I should say was, because it doesn't exist anymore. But MoveLoot was an online marketplace for buying and selling used furniture. And rather than just being a listing website, we would actually come to your house, we'd pick up your sofa, we'd take it back to a warehouse, photograph it, list it on a website, and deliver it to a buyer when it's sold. Or at least that was the dream in 2013. And the way we got this business launched was we actually launched an Indiegogo campaign. Indiegogo, for those of you that might not know of it, is a crowdfunding website that isn't focused necessarily on equity crowdfunding. We raised about $15,000 from our friends and family, and we used that money to get a tiny warehouse space in San Francisco. It was about 1,200 square feet. You can see it up. I don't know how, that picture's not very big, but up on the right-hand side, or I guess, yeah, your right-hand side. And we started emailing people on Craigslist, telling them that we would pick up their stuff. I think San Francisco is maybe the only city in America where this worked, because what person is going to believe that you're going to come, take their sofa, and give them some money for it when you don't have a website, you barely have a company, you're like 4 random 24-year-olds driving this rented yellow Penske truck around the city. And we were the movers. I mean, I have deep respect for people that move furniture. We were moving couches and kitchen tables and chairs down these narrow flights of stairs with tight corners. It was really kind of a disaster, to be honest. But it was a really cool experience, and we learned a lot about our customers, and ultimately the business started to take off. So in 2013, late 2013, we actually launched a website, a very, very, very bad MVP. So bad, in fact, that our first customer actually said, I don't trust your website, so you can bring me that table and I'll give you a $100 bill, but I'm not putting my credit card information into your website. And the way we got customers was also really scrappy. We took all the furniture that was posted on our website and we reposted it back onto Craigslist to drive traffic to our website. So people would email us and they'd say, I really like that sofa. And we'd say, great, we're this new company, MoveLoot. You should check us out. And so as we started to grow, we realized that we were going to quickly run out of cash. We weren't growing fast enough to be able to not burn too much money, and so we decided to apply to Y Combinator. Y Combinator is a tech accelerator that some of you may know about. It's based in Mountain View, just south of San Francisco, and originally started as kind of a software accelerator. We were kind of a software business with a physical product, so not necessarily in the sweet spot at that time for YC, but nevertheless we applied and we managed to get in. And that's really when things started to change for us. I mentioned that we were in this one storage unit. By the end of Y Combinator, which was a 12-week program, we were in 9 units in this building. We had outgrown our space to the extent that the people that owned the shared warehouse were basically like, you have to find new space because we don't have any more for you, and you're taking up too much of our inventory. And coming out of YC, we actually raised a $2.8 million seed round. And that really helped us continue to grow. And we had a group of investors who were incredibly bullish on our growth. We raised money at a time, at least in California, where there was a lot of capital available. And they really wanted us to focus on growing our business and not think too much about profitability. So in addition to growing our business in San Francisco, we also launched our business in North Carolina, and we launched a new line of business that was a B2B2C product, so business to business to consumer, which basically allowed us to take the overstock and return items from major furniture manufacturers and retailers, put it on our website, and then sell that as part of the inventory on MoveLoot. And that was also a big piece of our business. And about 10 months after we closed our seed round, we closed a $9.6 million Series A, and then 3 months after that, an additional $11.7 million. So in total, we raised about $22 million. And all of this money really went towards growth. We launched in 5 more markets. We were in North Carolina and in other cities in North Carolina. We were in Atlanta, we were in New York, we were in Los Angeles, and continuing to grow in the Bay Area. And in the fall of 2015, well, I should also add, and our team grew as well. So we had almost 300 employees in all of these markets, and we were spending a lot of money, probably to the tune of about $1 million a month, which is pretty insane. And in the fall of 2015, our investors, who had been incredibly bullish on our growth, came to us and they said, you know what, the funding environment's changing. You guys are not profitable. You don't know your unit economics. You need to figure out how to build a profitable business. And so we very sadly had to lay off about half of our team, which is a really hard, probably the hardest thing I had to do. And we started to focus on profitability instead of growth. But then, as happens when you focus on profitability, which we actually got unit profitable on the West Coast, we ran our East Coast operation at break even, your growth rate slows down. And our investors came back to us and they said, well, just kidding. You guys did a great job of trying to get profitable, but now you're not growing as fast. And we're worried that you're not going to hit the revenue number we think you need to hit to be able to raise even more capital. So we didn't really have the cash to launch physical operations in new markets, and we needed to figure out how to make MoveLoot available everywhere. And what we decided to do was to build a peer-to-peer marketplace. So I talked a little bit about Craigslist. Some of you might be familiar with Facebook Marketplace. But the idea was basically that we were going to be a prettier version of Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, and we would outsource the physical operation. So up until this point, the physical operations were ours. They were all of our employees who were doing the pickups and the deliveries. And the idea was that we would outsource that to a third-party company so that we could control costs. We very quickly pivoted the business. This pivot happened in about 3.5 months. We changed the website, tried to figure out what our marketing strategy was going to be, and we launched this new business in the spring of 2016. And the company at the time was doing somewhere between $800,000 and $900,000 a month in revenue. When we launched this new business, revenue went to $150,000. And the reason for that, I think, is multifold. I think partially it was because we had an incredibly loyal customer base, and we presented an entirely new product experience to that customer base. And so for us to be able to be successful in rebuilding this business, we were going to have to figure out how to attract new customers. But ultimately, it really wasn't probably the right move for this business because we didn't have that strategy in place, and we really didn't have the runway to figure it out. So we had an emergency board meeting. We tried to figure out what to do. Our investors basically, some of them decided that they wanted to try to put more money into the business. We ultimately decided that we didn't feel comfortable taking more money because we weren't really sure what this new business was going to be able to do, and we were competing in a totally new market. And so we tried to sell the business. The business actually didn't sell, and we ended up shutting it down. So all of this happened in about 3.5 years. And I share this story for a few reasons. One is because I want you to believe that it's possible to build something that's kind of cool and to fail really big and have it not work out and live to tell about it, which I think is an important thing to know, right? But I think more than that, I think this story really illuminates a couple of things. One is that perhaps we have a system of finance, and I think in reflecting on this experience, that maybe pushes companies to make decisions or puts them on a growth path that might not be sustainable for their business. And so as an EIR, I've gotten to do two things. One is I spent a lot of time with entrepreneurs as a mentor. And what I started to realize was that what happened to us wasn't unique. This might not happen on the same scale as it happened to us, but entrepreneurs often are facing these decisions about growth and profitability, and sometimes have to make decisions because of the demands that venture capital might place on a business that aren't sustainable for the long-term trajectory of the business. And the other piece is access to capital. So I'm a woman, and I'm a person of color, and I definitely had experiences with investors that made me uncomfortable. I have a lot of friends who are female founders or founders of color. I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of founders also who are building businesses outside of the Bay Area or outside of these major metro areas. And access to capital is a real problem. And the numbers demonstrate that. Last year, there was $130 billion that was deployed in the United States. 3% of that went to women, less than 1% of that went to people of color, and the vast majority of that capital is concentrated in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York. And so I kind of started to think, there might be an opportunity here to create an alternative that addresses the access to capital problem, that's focused on people that are building businesses outside of these major metro areas, and that focuses on underrepresented founders, and that also encourages companies to build profitable businesses. And so what I wanted to do was build something that was in the middle, that wasn't going to be necessarily as high risk as venture capital, but that would perhaps provide more funding to a business than a traditional bank loan might. So this is what I'm working on now. It's called the STEP Fund. STEP stands for Sustainable Tech-Enabled Products. And the goal behind this is basically that we would make an equity investment in a company, and the company would buy back the equity that we purchase using a percentage of revenue. And I am happy one-on-one to get into more details on how this works, because I don't want to bore you with too much financial analysis here. But the idea here is that if founders and investors are focused on long-term profitability of the business, because ultimately the investor is taking money out of the business, that your incentives are more aligned than they might be in a venture capital situation, where the goal is kind of growth at all costs so that you can build a big business like an Uber or an Airbnb. So back to my big idea, that we need this new system of capital to fund startups that supports women, people of color, and entrepreneurs outside of major metro areas. My hope is that the STEP Fund will be a model that other people can perhaps replicate. I don't think that I can solve this problem with one fund. But I think also, what I believe more holistically is that we need to rethink what it actually means to build a good business. And we need to rethink who actually has access to capital. And so my hope is that in being able to tackle one small piece of this problem, that we can begin to do that. Thank you.